Good morning. My name is David Okon. Merry Christmas. I hope you had a beautiful Christmas. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2024. And I'm so pleased to have a crossover from 2023 to 2024. This morning, thank you so much for the help you have given to me so far, and thank you everyone who have been helping, who have been watching this video, the ones who have been leaving comments. I've been talking about the cost of living crisis, and at this time I'm linking the cost of living to universal credit. If you live in the UK and you know about the welfare benefit which the government give to those who need help, the people on low income who need help, and it's a system of government policy which is actually designed to help people who are in poverty. And now with the cost of living crisis in the United Kingdom, we are now able to help those who actually are in need, and the information are specific, and I will do my best to stick to the point. Is a type of benefit which if people need help from the government, they can actually claim this benefit. The main benefit in the United Kingdom is the universal credit, and if you watch this video, watch it with the rates of the video, and when you are claiming universal credit, you claim either voluntarily, if you are in legacy benefit, or if you are making a new claim in the UK. The law applies in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and Scotland, and Northern Ireland. And this is a new benefit. It's part of benefit reform. It is actually the biggest welfare benefit reform in the history of the welfare benefit, and it's called universal credit. The government is rolling it out now to everyone who is actually on a legacy benefit. If you watch this video, watch it with the rest of the video. This is the continuation of the other videos about universal credit. It's a solution to the problem of low income, of trying to address the issue of extreme poverty in the United Kingdom. It is a similar situation in Europe, America, and also perhaps in Africa. And try to understand what is happening in your country and compare it with what is happening in the United Kingdom. The best place to go for information in the United Kingdom is actually visiting the government website, and also big organizations such as Citizen Advice, and you can access it anywhere in the world online and master what information you can get about welfare state and the way government work if you're interested. And sometimes even if you are not interested, because sometimes it's quite essential for people to have information. If you have the time, it doesn't matter how little time you allocate to learning something such as the benefit system in the United Kingdom, because it explains the condition of poverty in the United Kingdom, also how the government attempt to use the wealth of the nation to support those who need help in this country. So there are specific information I have been explaining to viewers. This is a continuation of that process. Like I said in the other video, when you are handling universal credit, when you are claiming universal credit, and you are actually in the process of moving from legacy benefit to the universal credit, there's a deadline of 3 months if you have been asked by the DWP in a letter, normally in a letter written to you, if you are actually on legacy benefit, and the DWP is asking you to move on to universal credit, which is what is happening now. What will happen to everybody who is on benefit in the United Kingdom? Everyone will be moved onto from other benefit. The other benefits are called legacy benefit, and those benefits will no longer be available. Everyone will be moved onto universal credit, and if you are being asked to move onto universal credit, the DWP will give you a deadline of 3 months, and you have to apply again for universal credit, which means you have to claim universal credit again. And I would have thought for the government to move people from legacy benefit directly to the universal credit, but the policy is such that your legacy benefit stops and you have to claim a universal credit, and you are given 3 months in which to claim universal credit. While you are actually in the process of transferring, and your universal legacy benefit continues, and while your legacy benefit continues, sometimes people miss the deadline of 3 months. They can ask the DWP to extend the deadline because of one reason or another. They cannot keep to the deadline, and so the DWP gives them 1 extra month. This is actually called the final deadline, which you one way or the other, you have to make sure you claim universal credit after the final deadline, because it is final. If you have a problem and you cannot claim within the final deadline, then there is a possibility you're going to lose benefit altogether. But the process of claiming after the deadline has passed, the deadline day has passed, and or the client can actually, you can claim benefit universal credit after the deadline day, which is actually the day of the original deadline of 3 months. You can actually claim afterward, after that time, between the end of the 3 months deadline and the extended deadline, which is called the final deadline. If you claim before the final deadline, but after the deadline, the actual deadline, then the DWP will backdate your benefit automatically. You will be awarded to your benefit will actually start from the deadline day, from the first deadline. It sounds a bit complicated, but what they are saying is that you don't have to do anything if you want a backdating to be done. Backdating means you miss out on a certain benefit and you want your universal credit to be backdated by 1 month, and also that means they will be done automatically in this under this circumstance. Like I said, it is important for people to know the changes happening with the universal credit, and people, like I said, because the government asked them to do so, will be moving from a universal from legacy benefit to universal credit. There are 6 legacy benefits, which are actually including housing benefit. These are called the benefit being replaced by universal credit. They are all called legacy benefits. These legacy benefits include housing benefit, income related, employment and support allowance, and income-based job seekers allowance, child tax credit, working tax credit, income support. These are the 6 benefits being replaced by the universal credit. If you are now receiving benefit, then you would know that before by 2029, everyone will be migrated to universal credit. Migration means you're going to be moved by the government from legacy benefit to universal credit. That's a government policy. So it's a case of complying with it, and so people should be aware if that might or might not affect you. Also, it is important to know that you cannot make a new claim if you are not on benefit at the moment, or you are maybe on some other thing. If you're trying to claim benefit, you cannot claim make a new claim of legacy benefit at the moment. Any new claim, it will be universal credit. Like I'm saying, if you're now getting universal credit, you will need to move to if you're getting legacy benefit now, any of them, any of the 6 legacy benefit, if you're getting it now, then you have to move to universal credit before 2029. That is the deadline for everyone. Everyone will be moved. It's called migration. Everybody will be migrated to universal credit. And if you really you can stay on legacy benefit. If before 2029, you can actually stay on universal credit unless there is a situation you're facing. For example, if the DWP asks you to move on to universal credit, normally they write a letter to you to say you need to move. Then they're going to give you a deadline. Normally they give 3 months, but it could be less or it could be longer, depending on what is written on the letter. If it's written a letter from the Department for Work and Pension to move away from universal credit, from legacy benefit to universal credit, then you have to do that. And you can also move if your circumstance changes in certain ways. For example, if you need to move to claim, if you need to make a new claim or for universal credit because you have separated from a partner, or you have moved to a different area, or say you have moved from one council to another. So these are actually some of the situations where now you might be required to move from a legacy benefit to universal credit. Like I said, if you are moving because the DWP asks you to move to universal credit from legacy benefit, you are going to get a letter. This letter is called a migration notice, which is should be at least 3 months, like I said. And this deadline for migration starts from when the date was sent to you. If it is sent on a certain date, that is when the deadline will start for at least a period of 3 months, or could be more than 3 months, but a minimum of 3 months should be given as a notice. Normally, if you receive a letter from the DWP to say you have to move to universal credit, if it doesn't give you a date, it means you have to decide for yourself whether you want to move straight away or wait for 2029 or some other day. And you need to understand also that if you are actually on, if you move to universal credit, you cannot go back to claim legacy benefit again. Now, there is also something called managed migration protection, transitional protection, managed migration protection. What is called managed migration transitional protection, which is you can actually get this situation when you claim universal credit after you have a formal notice of migration. Now, you can get managed migration transitional protection if you claim universal credit before migration notice. Now, if you claim migration notice after, if you claim universal credit after migration notice, then you can actually claim universal credit before the deadline on the letter if it says. So if you get a migration notice of universal credit and you claim and you don't claim before the deadline, and you are given the deadline, your old benefit is going to stop after the deadline. And if you claim benefit before the deadline, and then the DW might decide to pay you extra so that you don't lose out in certain ways. And also, therefore, if you can also claim after the deadline. Now, there's something called transitional protection, which is actually what the DWP pay under the managed migration a protection scheme or something like that. If you claim before the deadline of a notice, then you actually paid transitional protection, something called transitional protection, which is actually there to help you avoid being worse off. So when you are actually claiming benefit, if you are actually claiming universal credit, and in the situation that you are in a situation where your legacy benefit is more than universal credit, then you are actually paid extra the difference between the old benefit and the new benefit, which is universal credit. So there are other situations where transitional protection can also help if you might be able to get universal credit if you normally wouldn't get. For example, if you are actually a full-time student who wouldn't usually get universal credit, but you can get universal credit until the end of your course under certain circumstances. So that is a situation under transitional protection. Also, under transitional protection, you can get tax credit, and even if you have 16,000 over 16,000 in savings, and you can get universal credit for up to a year. So there are also situations where your universal credit may end earlier if your transitional protection ends for one reason or another. For example, if you separate from your partner. If you are given migration deadline, if you are given a deadline for migration, it is best to actually claim it within the deadline. But if you cannot, and you feel you cannot actually keep to the deadline, then it is best to ask the DWP to give an extension before the deadline, and then you can claim that. Claim universal credit after. It's best to if they give you an extra 1 month, then it is really important for you to claim within the 1 month deadline. Now, if you ask for extension of the deadline, it is up to the DWP to decide whether they're going to give it to you or not. There's no guarantee that they're going to give it. Maybe you have to give a good reason to them why you are not able to claim benefit within the original deadline on the letter. Now, if they give you an extension, the deadline is called the final deadline. Probably the name suggests that you might not be able to get any further opportunity to ask for an extension. If the deadline is extended, you can still keep the transitional protection. So it's important to at least claim within 1 month of the final deadline. If the final deadline of 1 month passes, then you can claim universal credit, but you don't get the transitional protection for universal credit. Now, on universal credit, there are some claimants who are eligible under managed migration. If your universal credit in my hand earlier, if your transitional protection ends for some one reason or another, like I said. And an example of this can be if you separate from your partner. And also, sometimes you cannot claim by migration deadline for one reason or another. If there's a deadline for migrating from one benefit to universal credit, which is what we call migration deadline, sometimes people cannot claim. If you cannot claim within this day migration deadline, then certain situation arises, and the deadline and you cannot in a situation when the deadline hasn't passed yet, you can ask the DWP to extend it. Now that means you ask the DWP to extend it before it ends. And then you can ask for this before the original deadline in letter. So normally they write you a letter, and before actually the original deadline ends, you ask for an extension, and normally the DWP may or may not agree, and then even if they agree, then they will send you a new deadline. So that's the situation. You can pay attention to that, and that's why I said, universal credit is it's a lot actually complicated, but it is something I believe people can pay attention to so that they learn as much as they can. If you go online, you can learn about the benefit, because it is if you don't need the benefit, other people may need it, and it might help if you actually help them. And also, and so in case you claim after the final deadline, you can still claim universal credit, but you can't get the transitional protection. So you don't get transitional protection if the final deadline has passed. That is the 1 month deadline after the initial deadline. If you ask the DW to do an extension of deadline, then you don't get the transitional protection. So normally you can actually talk to an advisor if you need more help, because sometimes things you go online and things get really complicated, and you shouldn't give up. That's what advisors are there for. If you can get hold of any advisor, go and get help from them. And normally when you are actually under managed migration, timing is very important. Timing to claim universal credit under managed migration is extremely important. And so you can actually look at the time before the deadline. You consider that. So if you still have time before the deadline, you can either consider to wait until your legacy benefit entitlement is as high as possible before claiming universal credit, because there are situations when legacy benefits are actually more than universal credit. So to avoid losing benefit during the process of managed migration, as I said already, moving from one benefit to another. When such situation arises, you need to be careful, otherwise you're going to lose benefit when you are trying to claim universal credit from legacy benefit. If you feel at a certain point your legacy and benefit entitlement is going to be higher at some point, so you should wait until your legacy benefit entitlement is as high as possible before claiming universal credit. An example of this situation would be you could consider waiting until you have reported a change of circumstance or challenge a decision. Change of circumstance could mean some money is coming from somewhere, either it's going to be less or more. So if it is less, it means you're going to get more universal credit. If it is less, it means you're going to get more. If it is more, you're going to get less universal credit. So you need to time your claim, which makes it really complicated, right? If it's feels so complicated, then it is probably the best thing is to go to experts, because these are situations, these scenarios actually need expert advice. So you just going through it so that you can get the appreciation to understand how complicated the benefit purchase system is. You're only trying to get benefit, and these are policies, and I'm trying to share it with you for you to understand that it is so complicated. And also, if you try to go to advisors, because they lack funding at the moment, and it's so not easy to get experts to give you advice. Now, if the government is trying to give benefit to people, why should it involve expert knowledge to claim benefit? That's why I have been saying in the video that it is the best idea for the government to actually simplify the system. So I'm trying to go through some of this information so that you actually take me at my own word if I say the universal credit process of claiming and also of managing the benefit is extremely complicated. You need an expert to help you to do that. And challenging decision, maybe if you disagree one way or the other, or maybe you claim benefit, or maybe the situation involving benefit which you are actually asking the DWP to look at again mandatory consideration. Normally, if you are actually challenge a decision, the outcome may mean you get more money, and this may affect your universal credit level because it's involving moving from one benefit to another. Maybe you are challenging benefit somewhere. Maybe one of the legacy benefits you are challenging the decision from the DWP, and if it is successful, they will probably pay you more money. And more money in your hands means your universal credit will be reduced, or otherwise, you may get one benefit less or more between legacy and universal credit. It sounds confusing, yeah, it is. I'm just trying to talk to you through this information. If you feel it is, leave a comment below and let me know if you think it is complicated. I think it is, and so it is for the government to think it can either pay more advisors to help people who are claiming benefit. If it wants people to get benefits, then that can be done. There's nothing wrong with that. The reason for this is that you could get more transitional elements from a higher legacy benefit entitlement. This is what I've been trying to explain. The legacy transitional element involves money they pay you either from universal credit or from legacy benefit. So you can get when somebody talk of elements of payment, it's actually universal credit. So when they talk of a transitional element, it means it's actually a type of payment within the universal credit situation involving managed migration, and there is a money which you expect to get, which is called element, which is universal credit, and you need to find out what kind of money it might be, because these are some of these information are general. So the reason you should consider to time the way you claim benefit, timing a claim under managed migration is important. One of the reasons is because you could get more transitional element from a higher legacy benefit entitlement. So if your legacy entitlement is higher, so in this, if you time it correctly, you might get higher transitional element, which is actually universal credit, under the condition of managed migration. And therefore, also because your standard amount or other elements increase after their first assessment period. If after your first assessment period, this is the period you actually begin to get universal credit, is called first assessment period, your transitional element will reduce. Now, transitional element reducing means there is more money you get from other legacy benefit or some other source, which affect your first period, the first payment within the first assessment period of universal credit. So I hope I'm actually trying to make sense with this situation, and so you should you should only wait. If I mean, it doesn't mean you're going to wait and something is going to happen. You're going to get something or another. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get something, but it also means you might get it. So it's like a gamble, and that's why I say, with these processes, we are always minded to be really as careful as possible, because some of the situation is actually hypothetical, so that you find a situation where if the clients are actually cautioned in certain circumstances. So if you are migrating on your migration day, normally if you're deciding on your migration day, this depends on when you claim universal credit. So claiming migration day, your migration day depend on when you claim universal credit. So if you claim universal credit on a day, in certain day, then that will be your migration day, because you're moving from one benefit to the other, so your migration day depends on when you claim universal credit. If you claim universal credit on a certain day, then that is when your migration day begins. You claim universal credit, your migration day begins on that day, on the same day as you claim universal credit. That is also when your migration. So as soon as you claim universal credit, your migration day is going to start on that day, the day you claim universal credit. So these are some of the situations you will have to go to understand. But if you claim before the deadline for if you claim before the deadline from the DWP, because the DWP, when they are notifying you, they give you the deadline. If you claim before that time, when the deadline with the DWP sent you, if you claim benefit before that time, your migration day is the day before you claim universal credit. So if you keep to the deadline of the DWP, the regional deadline, then the day before you claim universal credit, that is your migration day. You begin to move. You will be counted as having migrated to universal credit the day before you claim. So if you claim today, then your migration date will be maybe like yesterday. To me, this is actually something you can think about over and again to try and make sense. So if you claim after the deadline, your migration day is the day before the deadline. So the deadline, when you claim that today, your migration day is like yesterday. So there is one deadline from DWP and another deadline from somewhere else. So the deadline from somewhere else is when the deadline from the DWP has passed, and then you probably create another deadline by a way of extension. So so as long as you request a consideration or appeal before the day, by the day before your migration day, your decision can be backdated. So backdating of decision means you get more benefit. Your benefit actually will be backdated maybe by 1 month. But this is only depending on when the timing of when you actually do your reconsideration and when you apply. So as long as you request a reconsideration, which is a reconsideration is actually asking the DWP to look at a decision they made again. You are not happy with a certain decision, and you are asking the DWP to look at the decision again. This is called reconsideration. Also, appeal is when you go to the tribunal, to the court, to take the DWP's case there. And because when the DWP decline on reconsideration, then you go to appeal. That is the process. So if you you consider or you do a reconciliation or appeal by the day before a migration day, and the decision can be backdated. So the point to take home there, if you appeal before the day before the your migration, the day before, because if you appeal before the day before your migration, so if your migration day is today, then you appeal 1 day before. I think that's what they're saying. If you like, well, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about that sentence, because it's a bit. So let's look at if you are actually claiming tax credit in under the migration transitional period. If you're claiming tax credit, if you're claiming it, if you expect, if you expect your income to change, your transitional element might be affected by when you report the change to HMRC. So normally you change, you report the change to the HMRC, and when you claim universal credit, if it is done before you claim universal credit and you report a change, which means you report a change to the HMRC, could be maybe you left work, or maybe your income has gone down or gone up, and if you do this when you claim universal credit, so I mean, if you expect your income to change because your transitional element might be affected by when I mean, if you report a change of circumstance to the HMRC, your income, your transitional element may be affected. This is because transitional element is always going up or down, or staying the same, depending on whether or not when you are actually claiming you have more or less money, more or less income or investment or whatever. So leave a comment below if you think it is complicated or simple. If you think it's complicated, then if you want to do a study, then you can do some good study, or if you need help in some way, or a friend or family needing help, then you can help them one way or the other. So when transitional protection ends, with the transitional element also endings, especially if it is reduced to zero by other changes of circumstances. So because sometimes if you have income one way or the other, your transitional element, which is money, universal credit, involving a transitional period, including transitional protection, if it ends, the transitional element also might end if it is reduced to zero by other changes of circumstances. So if it is only if you are only eligible for universal credit through transitional protection, then you will stay eligible even if your transitional element is zero. So that information is interesting. You can have a think, and what it's saying, if you are only eligible for universal credit through transitional protection, and you will stay eligible even if your transitional element is zero. So that sounds to me like your situation is normal, because transitional element, although they are making a big deal of it, is abnormal. And all kind of transitional protection, and if you switch from a joint claim to a single claim, or from a single to a joint claim, if you have a partner or wife or married, this can also affect whether your transitional protection will end. And you or your partner's earning can also affect transitional protection ending. It will be ending. It will also end if your or your partner's earnings were above the administrative earnings threshold. Administrative earnings threshold means what actually the DWP considered to be appropriate as a level of income. So when you claim universal credit and you are earning more money than the DWP thinks you are earning is more than your earning threshold by the DWP measurement. If that happened, that situation will happen while you are claiming universal credit, then your benefit will fall below that threshold for 3 consecutive months. Whatever they talk about is that they're looking at your income level and then how it affect how your universal credit behave. So it's a question of detail and also maybe semantic, but it's a case of doing a study to understand exactly what they're talking about, because some of these statements are actually generalized. It depends on your circumstances. So the administrative earnings threshold since January 2023 is £677 for a single client claimant. So if you earn more than £677 per month, probably you are not going to get universal credit under this situation, maybe also under any situation. When they talk about administrative earnings threshold. And for couples or for single client, 677,000, about 700 actually per month, which is actually for a single claimant. But if you are claiming as a couple, then the amount is actually £1,083. So if you're self-employed, you are treated as having earnings above the threshold. If you are actually subject to the minimum income floor. This is actually minimum income floor is a level of earning which the DWP would construe. This includes if you are actually on a startup program, a startup period. So this is something you can check to find out if you're overwhelmed. Then there's ultimately you look at the materials as they are presented, given to you, and you think they're simple, and then you're happy. And then if you think they're complicated, too complicated for you, then you look for help from experts. These are actually situations involving expert advisors on benefits, and they are not very easy to get because of shortages of staff. Now, if you go everywhere in the UK today, there are shortages of staff everywhere because there are a lot of changes taking place in this country, but also countries changes happening throughout the world, including the United Kingdom. So this is information so important to get a view, to form a view. If you're a student, then your situation is exists in a certain way, and if you wouldn't otherwise get your universal credit, your transitional protection will also end when your course ends. So if you're only getting transitional protection, you're getting universal. If you're getting universal credit because of a situation of transitional protection, in which case you wouldn't otherwise get universal credit. But if you're only getting it because of transitional protection situation, if it ends, then it will your transitional protection will also end when your course ends. And that is for students. That is the situation involving students and universal credit, because under certain circumstances, I'm not quite sure, because normally it depends on how much student finance is given to a student. If it is given less than the DWP think, because the income of a student is assessed individually by the DWP. Sometimes some students actually depend on your funding structure and also maybe the area you're in. Some students get the full amount for their education and they will not be eligible for universal credit, but sometimes you students get universal credit when in under certain circumstances. So it is a case of, because the information are always all over the place, it's a case of looking at when. So you're looking at tax credit claim, and people who claim tax credit, I've already talked briefly about tax credit. So if you earn, actually, if you have over 16,000 in capital, which I already talked about, if your capital is more than 16,000 pounds, or including saving, capital includes savings, then your transitional protection will also end. Transitional protection is kind of like a situation of whether you get one level of universal credit or another during transitional period. It's involving transitional protection, which will also end. And if you are getting over 16,000 pounds in saving or capital, or something like that, in this scenario, it ends a year after your universal credit started. If your universal credit starts today, you call 1 year. If you are under transitional protection situation, which transitional protection will allow you to have more than 16,000 pounds in your bank account or somewhere else, and you get tax credit also. Tax credit is a form of universal credit. So tax credit, you can get your full tax credit for 1 year, then it ends. Other than a year, it will be earlier than a year if your capital falls below 16,000, because it will not be necessary. Because if your capital falls, reduces, you will be eligible for your universal credit anyway. So that's probably why the protection will change, will actually end, because it will not be necessary. That's what I think. That's how I'm interpreting this information. So this means that if your capital falls below 16,000 and then rises above 16,000 again, your universal credit claim will stop. So if it fluctuates, for example, if it actually rises above 16, then it actually comes down. We'll talk about transitional protection. Transitional protection is when you are actually privileged in terms of payment. But if you are actually below 16,000, then you don't need transitional protection in terms of tax credit claim. And this also is relevant to claimants who are actually in a situation of tax credit claim. So let us look at under this situation, this means that if your capital falls below 16,000 and then rises above 16,000 again, your universal credit claim will stop. So the client is also warned not to try to reduce their capital to increase their universal credit. Sometimes people actually are trying to reduce their capital because they want more benefit. Because you see, under these circumstances, they will end up getting more universal credit because they are measured as having less capital, which capital they probably tampered with to reduce the amount for purposes of claiming benefit. So this is called deprivation of benefit. If you willfully reduce your level of capital, the people will refuse to help you. They will treat you as if you have the capital. Maybe you decided to give it away to your nephew or the capital. You give the capital away. You will be actually counted as having deprived yourself of capital. In which case they will deny you benefit or treating you in certain ways for purposes of level of your benefit. So you can actually find out more information to figure out what counts as deprivation of capital. You can actually look online to figure out what type of information you might want to find out to help you to determine what constitute deprivation of capital. I'm going through this material. It's a privilege for me to do this. It's complex by any standard. And this is area I'm talking about is always about universal credit in a situation of expert and advisor. I'm not an expert on universal credit. So in our case, you and I, if we want, I can take longer to do a study with time, but that can take 6 months. But if you go to an expert advisor, they will help you quickly. So this exercise is to provide evidence, that is to give you idea as viewers, idea how complicated universal credit is. Because you'll talk about somebody who is out of work or sick, or maybe they are in a crisis, they need benefit quickly. And you produce this policy situation like this. It's okay if they are experts, they are advisors to help. But the problem with advisors now is that organizations are actually lacking. They're struggling. There is staff shortages everywhere. Railway, hospital, schools, for all such reasons, we'll be talking about employment, we will talk about other institutions. We have just talked about income. That's why we talk about benefit. There are two sources of income to ordinary, people of the United Kingdom. Either when you are running a business, income from your business, or from your work, or from benefit. So this is actually the main area of income in terms of benefit, universal credit. And these are different aspects of it. And so if you're going to restart transitional protection after transitional protection has ended, certain situation arises. So transitional protection cannot usually start. Now, normally it cannot restart. Even if your circumstances go back to what they were, they normally don't. An example is where your relationship ends and then you restart another relationship. Because you see, the rule relate to how legacy benefit behave in relation to universal credit. If you sign out for one reason, in other than normal situation, you sign out of legacy benefit, you cannot by rule go back to legacy benefit from universal credit. And the situation also provides from transitional protection. Transitional protection is a bridge between legacy and universal credit infrastructure, if you like. So transitional protection might start if you claim ended because your income was too high. So if your income is too high, your transitional protection will is most likely going to end because you because of the level of your income, which might actually even tamper with your benefit situation generally. If your income falls, low enough to qualify for universal credit within 3 months, then you can get transitional protection again. That is to do with eligibility criteria or benefit, or because I have said elsewhere that universal credit is means tested, which means if you are on high income, you get it. If you're on low income, you don't get it. More or less, because there are caveats within these situations. So let's look at how to claim universal credit, and I'm trying to repeat some of this situation, and I'm actually I'm thinking to actually end this video here. But let me try to look at how to claim it. If you try to claim universal credit, if you claim universal credit, you will usually get one payment each month, and you usually have to manage your claim online. We have already recorded this on the other video, but because we normally can have the leverage to repeat information, because we already done it in the other video. So if you missed the other video, you could probably have some pleasure later, because we will not be repeating it. Normally we refer people to the video already done, but let's run through this. It will just take 5 weeks, like I said, to get the first payment, universal payment, to be paid first time, but it could also take longer. If it takes longer sometimes, if the DWP, Department of Work and Pension, asks you to provide evidence and you didn't, and if you didn't persistently and they feel they're probably going nowhere with you, then they might stop the claim and you may have to claim again. So this will produce complication where in the process you might lose benefit, because any delay in the process may lead to you losing benefit unless you have good reasons. Sometimes you have to provide evidence from your employer. The DWP are so posh that they cannot pick a phone to ring Inland Revenue to find out maybe you are employed, even if you give them, because the truth of the matter, the DWP are actually, they don't have, they're struggling with actually, they struggle with staff shortages because of funding, because of lack of funding. Because the DWP, the Department of Work and Pension providing benefit, is actually public service. So if you if you watch the other video at the introduction, I said the public service generally everywhere, including benefit, is closing down because the government wants it closed down. The government is closing the public sector. Anything operating under the public sector then closes, including benefit system, educational, hospital, public transport, schools, employment, food, energy will stop. So today, when I say food and energy will stop, because now the government is still subsidizing food and energy. That's why we can afford it, and water. If the public sector is closed, we will have to buy water, food, energy very expensively. Anything now we are getting, because we will not be getting benefit, because that will just stop. You have to find work. If you don't, if nobody can employ you, you have to be self-employed, or kindly ask somebody rich to give you land to grow your own food, or speak to the government to take land by force before the government shuts down, because the government is shutting down anyway, because the government only exists if there is public sector. Because they are shutting down the public sector for political reasons, like I said before. They think that's the right thing to do. And if you think it is the right thing to do to the government to be shut, that is fine. Because if the government shut, you should be able to look after yourself 100%. You will be free from the government. The government probably won't tax you. But if the government is actually sold off to private government, then those government will continue to operate the government, to rule over you privately. There will be private individuals who will control the country, and they will tax you. They will behave the same way as public government as we have it now, but they will not be accountable to anybody. They will be like gods of the world. I probably it's not going to happen, but it might. If it happen, then it is up to us to adjust and deal with it. And actually, sometimes if you live in the world, you need to understand how to survive, because you have to live to fight another day. And if you face challenges, you have to fight such a challenge. Like, the reason I'm not talking about all this is because of the cost of living crisis. So this will help us to broaden our understanding of how the situation is. So we're looking at claiming universal credit. It will usually take 5 weeks, like I said. So if your old benefit might stop before your universal credit starts. When this benefit stops, whether it stops or not, depends on which benefit you get and when you claim your benefit. So timing, we talk about timing. So if you claim before the deadline from the DWP, so the deadline from the DWP, when they actually ask you to transition, to migrate from legacy benefit to universal credit, that is actually the deadline from the DWP. So if you claim before that time, if you claim before the deadline from the DWP, things like tax credit will stop the day before you claim universal credit. So if you claim universal credit today, your tax credit will stop yesterday. That's probably what they're talking about. So you talk also about housing benefit, income-based job seekers allowance, income-related employment support allowance, income support, stop 2 weeks. This will stop 2 weeks after you claim universal credit. So if you're getting this benefit, you wait for 2 weeks and they will stop after claiming universal. If you claim universal credit today, after the deadline, within the DW deadline, then these other benefits, if you're getting them, will stop in 2 weeks' time. This is actually the information you might need to know. So if you're claiming universal credit after the deadline from the DWP, also, you talk about tax credit, you talk about other benefit. So you will only get the extra 2 weeks payments if you are still eligible for the benefit. So you won't need to pay back the extra payments, and they won't affect how much universal credit you get. So they actually forgive you. You get it free. I mean, if you do it, if you claim it within if this will ask you to claim benefit within a certain deadline. If you claim it within a certain deadline, according to this information, you will get some benefit for 2 weeks. The old benefit you get for 2 weeks. So if your situation changes, situational changes is important. So if you haven't had a migration notice, which is what information you get from the DWP, the notice for migration, for moving from a legacy benefit to universal credit, it's called migration notice. When you are actually reminded that you need to move, you might still be better off claiming universal credit if your work or your home or family situation changes. And normally changes relate to income, whether your income goes up and down. And if you are better off claiming universal credit, it might mean you benefit more from universal credit. So you have to actually be able to measure the amount of universal credit or the amount of other income which is actually in your life. Some changes will end your benefit claim, like I said. So claiming universal credit might be the only way to replace them. Okay. So you can't claim universal credit if you and your partner, if you have one, are both reach state pension age. It's usually best for you to claim pension credit. So you have somebody who is now retirement age, and they're getting pension credit, or state pension. Now, I know if your partner is a state pension age and you are not, you can't claim universal credit if you and your partner, if you have one, are both reached state pension age, because both of you are state pensioners. It is user based claims pension credit. So you can also check if you can get pension credit rather than universal credit. I have already talked about this in the other video. So I'm just going through this just to give you a flavor of how things might or might not work. So if you need help with housing costs, you can also claim housing benefit if you are a pensioner, in other words. Because housing costs, if you are actually of working age, you get a housing element with the universal credit, unless you are living in a temporary accommodation with the social housing. Then you still get, that's still the policy, you get universal credit. And your temporary accommodation given to you by the government or other association, you get housing benefit with universal credit. If you're in a privately rented accommodation, or you are actually on a mortgage, then you get a universal credit. You don't get housing element if you are actually on a mortgage. You can get help with interest payment, the cost of interest. We have also discussed that already. You can't usually make a new claim for pension credit or housing benefit if you are over state pension age but have a partner under state pension age. You can only make a new claim for pension credit or housing benefit if both the following apply. You or your partner reach state pension age before the 15th of May 2019. So you've been claiming, or if you have been claiming housing benefit or pension credit as part of the same couple since before May the 5th, May 2019. The bit I understand properly from this information is that if one of the partners are still of a working age, then you don't actually claim pension-based type of benefit. So if you're going to move into universal credit, what triggers it? If a change of circumstances means your client or you would need to make a new benefit claim, then you won't be able to claim legacy benefit. I've already talked about that, so I'm only repeating it. Your best option might be to claim universal credit. We already talked about that. There isn't a complete list of triggers. You can get some more detail on specific triggers. We are going over this again, which is quite nice, because my viewers should be able, you should get the flavor of what goes on in terms of relations, policies to do, or policy on benefit, universal credit. And if you fancy more of the same, then leave a comment below. Click notification bell, subscribe to my channel, and click like, click notification bell, and leave a comment below. And I will see you in the next video. Share with family and friends. Thank you so much for watching me this far. And Happy New Year. Glorious 2024. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.